It's morning, but the sun doesn't rise freely here. It peeks through barbed wire, casts shadows over watchtowers, and falls silent on streets lined with fear. Before breakfast, there's a checkpoint. Before school, there's a search. Before play, a soldier's stare. In occupied lands, nothing is yours. Not the road beneath your feet, not the sky above your head, not even your name. When it's shouted by someone with a gun, they say it's for security. But what kind of safety requires children to lift their shirts? In front of strangers? What kind of peace comes from cages built around villages? People learn to move quietly, not because they have secrets, but because their existence is treated like a threat. A man steps out to buy bread and returns late or never. A girl writes poetry in a language she's forbidden to speak. A mother watches her son walk past tanks every day and wonders if prayer is stronger than steel. You don't need bars to build a prison. Sometimes all it takes is a wall tall enough to hide your future. Here, resistance is not just protest. It's planting olive trees, even when they'll be uprooted. It's teaching your child history that someone else has erased. It's smiling when they want you broken. The world sees maps. They see lines. They debate rights from faraway rooms. But they don't hear the silence after curfew. They don't smell the tear gas in schoolyards. They don't feel the weight of walking with your dignity in your hands. This isn't war. It's slower than that, colder, more quiet, the kind of violence that doesn't make headlines, but leaves scars just the same. In places under occupation, even silence feels watched. Even dreams feel limited by what's allowed. People speak in lowered voices, not because they're hiding the truth, but because truth, when spoken too loud, can become dangerous. Children learn the rules before they learn the alphabet. Don't run, don't shout, don't make sudden moves. They learn how to answer questions at gunpoint, how to keep their eyes down, how to disappear into obedience, just long enough to survive the day. But inside, a different language is growing, a language of resistance, of memory, of not letting go. A grandfather passes down a key, not to a house, but to a history. He tells the child, "This was ours. They may take the walls, but not the story." A teenager hides a slingshot under his pillow, not because he believes he can win, but because doing nothing feels worse than fear. A mother teaches her daughter how to be proud without making noise, how to stand tall, even when the world is trying to make you small. Under occupation, time moves differently. You count not in days, but in humiliations, in searches, in delays, in the sound of boots coming down your street. But even in that darkness, something shines. A boy draws freedom on the back of his schoolbook. A girl writes her name in chalk on the wall of a closed road. A teacher teaches history in whispers and in code. And so the people remain, not because they're allowed to, but because leaving would be surrender, and surrender is not in their blood. They are still here, still breathing, still belonging, even when everything around them says they shouldn't. The occupation is not just in the streets. It lives inside routines, inside the calendar, where holidays are canceled and curfews take their place. It lives inside the school books that no longer carry your flag, inside stories rewritten to erase your existence. One paragraph at a time, a boy learns history from his grandfather, not the classroom, because the truth he hears at home doesn't match the one printed in state-approved ink. And when he asks why, his grandfather says, "Because our story is dangerous to those who built their power on forgetting it." A girl carries her ID card like a weapon. It decides where she can go, what she can see, how human she's allowed to be. It's just a piece of paper, but it holds more power over her life than her own heartbeat. Every road is a negotiation. Every breath is borrowed. You never really arrive. You just move carefully through the limits someone else drew for you. Sometimes they cut the water, sometimes the electricity, sometimes the road itself. But the people have learned how to live around the blockades, how to cook in darkness, how to teach by candlelight, how to make joy from nothing. They refuse to vanish, even when the system is built to erase them quietly. Resistance is not always loud. Sometimes it's just continuing to walk, to write, to fall in love, to raise children who know who they are, no matter what the world tells them. They are not prisoners. They are not shadows. They are not broken. They are occupied, but unyielding. There are days when a single street can feel like a battlefield, not because of bombs, but because of checkpoints, rifles, orders shouted through loudspeakers, in a language that doesn't belong to the land. A child clutches his school bag as soldiers stop the car. His mother grips the steering wheel, as if strength alone could protect them both. The soldier doesn't look at her. He looks through her, as if she's not a person, but a risk that needs to be controlled. This is what occupation does. It teaches you how to vanish while standing right there. People don't ask for justice anymore. They ask for delay, for mercy, for a moment of silence. Instead of another raid in the night, doors are knocked down, homes turn inside out, and the world outside never hears the shouting, never sees the fear, etched into the eyes of a 6-year-old, watching her brother, dragged away. But still, the people wake up the next day. They sweep the broken glass. They boil water for tea. They walk their children to school, past walls that say, "You don't belong here." And yet, they walk tall, because occupation can take your roof, but not your pride. It can break your windows, but not your will. They celebrate weddings in alleyways, hang lights between ruined buildings, sing songs they were told to forget. They remember everything, and in that remembering, they resist, not with weapons, but with breath, with presence, with the refusal to disappear. In the occupied city, night doesn't bring rest. It brings questions. Will they come tonight? Will they knock? Will they break the door? Or just the silence? Every creak of a floorboard, every echo in the hallway feels like warning. A mother sleeps with her shoes on, just in case. A father keeps his phone charged, ready to call a name that may never answer again. The fear doesn't scream here. It whispers. It hums beneath every normal thing. Cooking dinner, folding clothes, telling your child a bedtime story, while tanks roll in the distance. And yet, they try to give their children a childhood that war can't steal. They tell them stories, not of princes and dragons, but of grandmothers who baked bread with their bare hands, of orchards that once bloomed without permission, of a time when windows opened to laughter, not sirens, because memory is a form of resistance. So is love. So is surviving without letting hate rot your heart. In the morning, they sweep the street again, not because it will stay clean, but because it's theirs. They paint murals on cracked walls, faces of those who are gone, dreams of those not yet born. They live like roots, underground, quiet, unseen, but impossible to kill. Even in the darkest corners, they hold on to a light no army can touch, because occupation can take the land, but not the spirit. And as long as they remain, as long as they breathe, they are the proof. This land is still loved, still remembered, still theirs. Some people fight with weapons. Others fight by staying. They stay in broken homes, rebuilding walls, with hands that never stop shaking. They stay in villages, surrounded by fences, where the sound of drones is louder than the wind. They stay because leaving would mean surrendering everything they ever were. This is a different kind of war, not waged in one day, not one with victory parades. It is fought in kitchens, in schools, in the way a woman kneads dough. As soldiers walk past her window, every act of daily life becomes resistance. A father teaching his son the name of every tree that once stood before they were cut down. A girl planting herbs in a tin can, watering it like it's a piece of her future. A grandmother humming old songs, even when no one is listening. This is how they hold on, not by force, but by memory, not with anger, but with the unbearable weight of knowing who they are. In a world trying to make them forget, maps are redrawn, names erased, but the soil still remembers. Every footstep, every drop of sweat, tilled into its skin. And the people, they remember too. They speak softly now, but their silence is full of history, full of names, full of home. They don't ask for pity. They don't ask for revenge. They ask only for the right to wake up without fear on their own land. And until that day comes, they stay. They call it conflict, as if it's equal, as if both sides carry the same weight, the same wounds, the same power to destroy. But the truth is quieter, more brutal. It lives in the gap between a stone and a drone, between a curfew and a funeral. Here, even silence is occupied. A man wakes to the sound of boots outside. He doesn't move. He knows the drill. Keep the lights off. Keep the children still. Wait for the noise to pass. But the noise never truly passes. It settles in the bones, in the breath, in the blood. And yet, they continue. They go to work. When there is work, they walk to school. When the road isn't closed, they live, not because it's easy, but because giving up would mean agreeing that their lives are less. And they're not. They are poets whose words have been banned, farmers whose fields are watched by towers, mothers who learn to celebrate birthdays without candles, without cake, but never without love. Even grief becomes sacred here, because to mourn is to remember, and to remember is to declare, we were here, we are here. Occupation may steal land, may rewrite names, may bury the truth beneath lies, but it cannot erase a people who refuse to stop existing. They teach their children to walk tall, even when the street tilts against them, to carry keys, even when the doors are gone, to sing, even when the world forgets their song. Because one day, this land will speak again, and it will remember who stayed, who endured, who refused to kneel. And when that day comes, they will not need to shout. Their presence will be louder than any flag ever flown above them. There comes a point when occupation no longer shocks you. It just weaves itself into everything you do. You learn to live with the sound of surveillance. You walk beneath drones, like clouds that never rain. You speak carefully, not because you're guilty, but because you're watched. Freedom becomes a memory that tastes like something you once had, but can't quite describe anymore. You hear stories of the past, of markets full of music, of neighbors who left doors unlocked, of nights lit by lanterns, not helicopters. And you wonder, was that ever real? Or is it just something the elders tell you to help you survive this one? Children draw flags they've never seen raised. They sketch houses they've never lived in. They name cities they've never touched, but still call them home. And that is power. Because even if the land is taken, even if the walls are broken, the idea of home remains untouched. They write poems on concrete. They turn ruins into stages. They pass the flame from voice to voice, from heart to heart, so that it never goes out. And through it all, they keep asking questions no checkpoint can answer. Why are we treated like strangers? On our own land? Why is our silence met with suspicion, and our truth with force? And perhaps the most haunting one of all, what will it take for the world to finally see us? But even if no answer comes, they keep walking, not just toward freedom, but toward dignity, toward a future where their story is not one of suffering, but of standing, because being here, still, despite everything, is no longer just survival. It is a revolution. Somewhere in the rhythm of survival, they forget what it means to feel safe, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, to walk without being watched, to speak without choosing every word like a weapon, to dream without limits. But they keep dreaming anyway. Even under occupation, dreams remain free. A boy dreams of flying, not away, but above the walls, above the wires, above the silence that cages his voice. A girl dreams of becoming a doctor, even though her school has been raided twice this year, even though the road there is closed more days than it's open. Their dreams aren't small. They're bold. They're wild, because to dream while being crushed is the most fearless thing a person can do. And through these dreams, they build something the world can't touch. Not a state, not a flag, but a spirit born from centuries of struggle, shaped by loss, forged in the quiet fires of everyday resistance. This is not just about occupation. It's about identity, memory, dignity. They are not victims. They are survivors who carry their ancestors in their footsteps. They are the echo of every prayer whispered in secret, the shadow of every home that was stolen, but never forgotten. And when they walk with all of it, every heartbreak, every chant, every unburied name. The world may still look away, but they have never looked down. They are not waiting to be saved. They are waiting to be seen. And until then, they will remain. One day, the walls will fall, not with a crash, but like a sigh, when the world finally sees what it chose to ignore. But until that day, they endure. They write their story on scraps of paper, on pieces of skin, on the wind that moves, through alleyways choked with dust and defiance. This isn't just about land. It never was. It's about being allowed to exist without apology, to name your child without needing permission, to love, to laugh, to bury your dead with dignity. They know the cameras won't stay. They know headlines move on, but they also know that truth outlives attention. They are the truth. Every step they take is towards something greater than just survival. It's a quiet kind of revolution, built not on noise, but on memory, not on rage, but on roots. They carry their homeland inside them, in their language, in their food, in the way they refuse to forget. And when the day comes, when the gate is gone, when the road is open, when no one asks them to prove they belong, they won't come back broken. They'll come back whole, not because the world fixed them, but because they never let it break them. They are more than occupied. They are sacred. They are surviving. They are still here. And that is victory.